If you discovered during an application process for a residential rental property that the applicant was an illegal immigrant, how would that affect your qualification process? It's a good question. And I ask the question because what I'd like to know is, how did you determine that this person was an illegal immigrant in the first place? Are you checking for passports? Are you looking at visas on passports? Are you checking birth certificates and looking for national origin? If you are doing that, why are you doing that? The reason I ask is because federal fair housing law says that we as landlords are not to discriminate based upon national origin. And of course, the only thing that you can ascertain from that is their national origin, and why would you want to use that as a criteria since you can't in the first place? It's apparently, according to the federal government, not our job as property managers to make this sort of a judgment. We find in this country that foreign nationals are permitted to buy real estate with impunity, certainly well within the purview of the law. And since purchasing and owning property is simply a different kind of tenancy than renting a property, there's really no reason why we should prohibit immigrants of any sort to be renting property in the United States. Now, when you start doing your qualification, you may find that you're being given an ITIN, which is an individual tax identification number, and that will be different than a social security number. And of course, if an applicant gives you an ITIN, that won't reveal any credit results, because the credit companies don't use ITIN, they only use social security number. So you may return an applicant that does not have a credit history. This could be problematic for you depending on your qualification program, but in our particular case, I know that we don't necessarily discriminate based upon a tenant not having a credit history, as long as they don't have a bad credit history. There are all sorts of people out there who prefer not to get involved with credit, and I can't hold that against them as a criteria. There are other ways of checking to see that they are dependable rent payers. And I think that if you should for some reason later on believe that a tenant that you have is an illegal immigrant, I don't think you have any obligation to report that, no more so than you would have if you were to suspect for some particular good reason that a neighbor that you have is evading their taxes. I think that's not your obligation or responsibility to report those kinds of things. Our job, I think, as landlords and as a property manager, is to find a tenant who's going to pay the rent on time, to take good care of the property, and I think that's really the biggest charge that we have to deal with. If you want to know more about this, I've written a lot more detail and more specifics about the immigration question in a written blog that accompanies this video on my company website at www.3optionsrealty.com. So feel free to go there and read more about it, and hopefully that answers your questions. I'll leave it there, and look forward to talking to you next time. Happy landlording until then.